Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Please note that today's session is being recorded. Before we begin today's session, I'd like to go over some small housekeeping items. This is in webinar format, which means that attendees are in listen and view only mode with no ability to unmute or start your cameras. You'll be able to ask questions during the Q&A portion of the call by selecting the Q&A icon on your Zoom toolbar. Also, please feel free to use the chat feature to send any comments or feedback. And with that, I'd like to start the session by turning it over to Ilana Moritz.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. I am Ilana Moritz. I am part of the events team here at PSC. We're going to get started, and thank you again for attending today the 2022 Business Lighting Application Training. Next slide. So I want to go over our program today. We're going to have a safety moment. That is a huge part of our PSC culture. We host, all employees are required to have a safety moment before kicking off meetings. We're going to go over who we are. We'll have a polling question, go over the business lighting program, what's new for 2022, all 2022 incentives. We'll have the live application training. There will be time for question and answering during the live event. So I want to make sure if you do have questions, please upload them to the Q&A chat, or sorry, the Q&A function versus the chat, so we can make sure to flag those and have time at the end of our presentation to answer. And of course, we will have closing comments. Next slide. So our safety moment, on the left, you'll see a vehicle with power lines on them. So we just want to remind everybody, if you ever encounter downed power lines, you must always assume lines are energized. Do not drive over downed power lines. Do stay in your vehicle. But if you are in danger and you need to leave your vehicle, please jump away from your car and land with both feet together. And then shuffle away to safety at least 35 feet. Next slide. Today's presenters. We have Michael Lane. He is the Energy Efficiency Supervisor for Business Lighting. And we also have Andrew Pultorak. He's the Senior Project Manager for Business Lighting. Hi, guys. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. Let's go to the next slide. I want to start right off the bat with a poll. So we have quite a few participants here today, so we're kind of curious to see who is participating. If you don't see your category that's shown in front of you, then please put it in the chat function. This will help us to understand not just people who are in attendance, but groups that we can reach out to in the future and do a further outreach to that understand and can learn about our programs. So we'll just give it maybe another 30 seconds as you decide what category you fall into. Must have caught a lot of people because no one's going into the chat. So must have caught all the categories. Okay, let's see what we have. Morning, Marco. So it looks like electrical contractors are the most. Great. And we also have a rebate administrator and someone with clear results as well. The others. Thanks so much. That will help us understand people who attend these events. Next slide. So today we're going over the business lighting program. PSC does offer a lot of different programs. I would say in general that if there is a way that you can save energy, then PSC has a way to be able to help you, be able to give you some incentive or rebate to do that, be it either for business, be it commercial or residential, or be it in electric or in gas, either way. So as long as you're saving energy, PSC will typically have some sort of way to give you an incentive or rebate. So keep that in mind. But today and this morning, all we're going to be going over is specifically the business lighting program, which is where I work. So this is for retrofit projects, and we do cover interior and exterior. So for the exterior, think of if you have a property and you have some wall packs or you have bollards, pathways going into the different buildings. So if you have a campus, we would be able to cover that. Just need to be, of course, within our electric territory. So also think about roadways. We do offer a street lighting program as well. So if there's folks that are here that know the municipality or some of the electrical contractors, if you reach out to the municipalities, then we do also offer street lighting under the business lighting program. And it is the same application for that as well. We do quite a bit of work on the street lighting side. The way we differentiate if it's truly under street lighting or under the business lighting program is we would vet that through our pole services group just to see where you would fall under, but the incentive amounts are the same for those savings. If you want to apply, there is a quick website that's shown on your screen there, pse.com/business lighting. And we'll show you a little screenshot in just a moment of what that looks like. And the email address, if you have questions, the general mailbox is businesslighting@pse.com. Okay, next slide. So what's coming new for 2022? We will have one application. There is going to be for business lighting, one application for street lighting, one application for tenant improvement, and I'll explain what tenant improvement, how we differentiate those in just a moment, and also one application for commercial new construction program on the lighting portion. We do have the commercial new construction program that you can apply for all sorts of things. But when it comes to just specifically lighting, if you're only doing lighting on a new construction project, then you'll be able to use the business lighting program application. Something a bit new this year. Next slide.
One quick clarification. This is Michael. We still will have the simple application that we've had in the past. It just has not been updated at this time, so it'll be a little while before we have that one available.
And to clarify for those that don't know the difference between our regular application then the simple application is the simple application is if you only have 5 measures or less. So if there's only 5 different line items going into the application, then you would want to use a simple one. Makes it a little bit quicker for you. So we are looking at you can use tenant improvement this year. What we found that's been happening over the past couple of years is we've had some people call us up and say, hey, I have this project, but the lighting was just revamped. And they're looking to do some more, but we realized just, last month or a couple months ago, one portion of the building was already done, and now I'm involved and they're looking to do the rest of it, and I happen to catch it, and I'm wondering if we can offer them the incentive. Typically that answer would be no, because we have no way to verify what the existing product was before they pulled everything out and revamped it and reworked that space. So now we're able to offer that if you do get into a space and it was recently upgraded, we will have that shown under tenant improvement. We still won't be able to know what was in there prior to them upgrading the project. So we will base it upon the 2015 Washington State Energy Code and what they're required for the square footage for the using the area space method. In that, so there's a lighting power allowance there. We will be able to do that for both interior and exterior, and you'll be able to use the business lighting application. So those same addresses there that I gave you earlier. So if you want to apply, you can find the application on pse.com/business lighting. And again, if there's questions, you'd always want to email businesslighting@psc.com. And the business lighting team that would also be administering and handling all of those projects that come in for tenant improvement. So we feel like this is a good expansion to folks where they've struggled in the past to go, I really want to be able to offer our customer that, but unfortunately they didn't realize. Sometimes you might come across, not even if you're just an electrical distributor and you come across that, but sometimes developers, I know we don't have any on the line today, but sometimes developers don't realize, and they're just learning about our program as people get educated of what's available out there. And we don't want them to feel like they missed the boat to be able to get those incentives. So we're going to be able to offer those. And it's a win-win for us as well, because we're able to capture the savings and be able to give those incentives. So if we can capture the savings, then we want to be able to offer that incentive. So hopefully you guys think that this is a great plus for you this year. Okay, next slide, please. We also have an option for commercial new construction. And again, this option is if that new construction project that you're applying for is only dealing with lighting, because our commercial new construction program has been in existence for many years. But not only lighting does it cover, but it also covers commissioning, it covers energy modeling, energy use intensity performance, things of that sort. Also post-occupancy, commissioning. They cover a wide variety of things within their program. So keep that in mind when you're looking at projects, that if it is a commercial new construction project, you could apply to that other program. But if you want to just do the lighting only, or you're applying just for lighting, then you can use our application. And what's used there for that program is the 2018 Washington State Energy Code as the baseline. And instead of business lighting team that's going to administer this program, it will be the commercial new construction team. So it is a different email address and a different way to grab that application. So you would apply at psc.com/new construction if you're doing things that are outside of lighting. And if you want to apply for, again, just specifically lighting, then you want to apply to us at that lighting. Any questions on that? Anybody? I don't see any questions in the chat box. So just want to make sure that's clear. And again, if there are questions later on and you think about them after this session is over today and this webinar is over, you could always email businesslighting@psc.com or email me or Michael, and we'll give you those addresses at the end. Okay, next slide. So here are the incentive levels. If you've been part of our program before and have applied in 2021, most of these numbers are staying the same. There's very little changes in there, where we're offering the 17 cents per kWh for an HID to LED screw-in replacement. So we're not able to offer any kind of screw-in replacement unless it is an HID to LED, so such as a bollard for an exterior project or maybe a wall pack. Very rarely do we see screw-ins anymore for a warehouse. Most times people are installing brand new fixtures. So we're finding that the HID to LED screw-in replacement is typically being used for exterior. You don't want to buy a brand new bollard or a wall pack or something of that sort. You could also do some parking lot lights with that too, but again, we see it mostly for exterior projects. We're still offering pin-based replacements for CFLs at 17 cents, but it must be a pin-base. It cannot be a screw-in. As well, we're offering the 17 cents a kWh for lighting components. Those are items where we differentiate to the next line where you get 25 cents for a new fixture or retrofit kit. The difference into lighting components is you go and purchase each of the components to retrofit a fixture. Say a 2x2 fluorescent is installed in an office. And instead of you pulling out that whole fixture and it's a new fixture replacement, you are buying individual T-LEDs, you're buying new sockets, you're buying the driver, things of that sort. Those are components where you are creating a new fixture, pulling out the guts of the old one, and creating a new fixture yourself. Retrofit kit would be where the manufacturer on their cut sheet, their specification sheet, would actually say this is a retrofit kit. Typically what that means is that you are still gutting the fixture, but when you buy the product from the manufacturer as a retrofit kit, the LEDs are integrated on typically a panel, and there are just a couple screws, maybe 4 or 5 screws to screw it into place, and a couple wires, and you're done. You're not replacing sockets, you're not replacing other wiring, and the driver is also included for the manufacturer, part of that retrofit kit, and it's all wired up. You're just wiring it to the line voltage, and then screwing it in to keep it in the ceiling to the housing that is in the ceiling. So that's the difference really between lighting components, new fixtures, and retrofit kits, and why we give a difference in how much we pay in the kWh savings. Now, if you're doing a fixture, a whole new fixture, and you're also doing controls as well, then we will offer you additional 10 cents. So that brings you up to 35 cents kWh. And this is the same numbers that we've been offering for 2021. So you're adding on additional controls. Say you're adding in some occupancy sensors for a classroom. Then we would be able to offer you that additional controls bundle, which brings you up to 35 cents. Now, something that we also been offering is $75 a fixture bonus for each LLC fixture. And I'll explain a little more deeply what LLC stands for in a moment, and then show you an example of LLC. But the nomenclature stands for Luminaire Level Lighting Control. And that's where there is an aux sensor and the daylight sensor is installed on each and every fixture. We give a bonus for that. And again, there'll be some slides coming up in just a moment to go a little bit deeper into that explanation. Something new for 2022, we are going to be offering $75 for a fixture bonus for exterior, what we're calling an LC control, which is network lighting control. It would be something similar to what an LLC fixture, but that's really for an interior project. So for exterior, it's called network lighting control. Again, having the controls on each fixture to be able to collect those extra savings, we will offer $75 per fixture at each and every fixture. And then again, this is brand new for 2022. We're still offering a $4 per T-LED incentive for each and every T-LED. We do have some distributors through the Lighting to Go program that will stock these. When you go through that program, Lighting to Go, since it is a separate program, then we wouldn't offer it on an application. And the reason that we offer it on this application is we find many times there are projects where people aren't just replacing T-LEDs, they're replacing some new fixtures outside or inside. Maybe they have some storage areas where they want to just replace the T-LEDs. It's a combination of things. So PSC is offering that you can still receive that $4 per T-LED if you apply through us, or if you apply through Lighting to Go and just walk into a distributor. So either way. And that $4 per T-LED is replacing a T12 or T8. Now, something that's fairly new, we have been offering this for the past 2 months, but we've kind of kept it a little quiet. So we're giving a little bit bigger announcement for 2022 on T-LEDs, the T-LED replacement. We have found that in the past few months, or over the last year or so, that since T-LEDs have become much more efficient, the first T-LEDs probably hit the market somewhere 8-10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. And we're finding that the wattages and the efficiency, the lumens per watt, have dramatically increased. The wattage has come down, but the efficiency has gone up. So we're finding that some manufacturers are now offering a much lower wattage on their T-LEDs that they were making from 10 years ago. And that difference is great enough that we can actually offer you some savings on those. So if you've done projects a good 8-10 years ago, you may want to go back to those and start digging those out. And now we can offer $2 for each of those T-LEDs. But the stipulation there is that it must be a T-LED to T-LED replacement for that $2, and it has to have that minimum of 5 watts for each T-LED in that savings. Within the program, all of these relate to being up to 70% of the install costs. That is our maximum. Okay, could I have the next slide? Now let's look into a little bit deeper on that luminaire level lighting control. I told you it stands, that's what the LLOC stands for. That $75 bonus. The way this part of the program works is that when you apply, there are certain space types that is allowed for interior spaces to receive this bonus for each fixture. Those typical spaces are like daylit warehouses, top lit. So think of something like a Costco or a Home Depot. Those could apply, or an office space that has daylight coming in through the windows. Then we'd be able to offer that incentive as well. So $75 for each and every fixture, and those fixtures must have a daylight sensor and a knock sensor installed on every single fixture. This is pretty typical these days that most of the major manufacturers, they're all offering this product now. I was talking to you 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe only 50% of them were offering them. So it's fairly common now that if you go to any of the major manufacturers and you ask them for a 2x2 or a 2x4 fixture, that they do have an option for an LLC option, which again means you must have the aux sensor and daylight sensor on every single one. Now, with that said, if you have a project and you don't have aux sensor and daylight sensor on every fixture, but you have it maybe one daylight sensor assigned to 5 fixtures and the aux sensor assigned to 5 fixtures, you'll still be able to get that 35 cents that we're offering on the KWH, but you won't be able to get the $75 bonus. And the reason we're doing the bonuses is to not just help promote the product to get into the field, but we find that savings can be pretty high. There's been some studies done, and they're claiming about 60% savings on our own office space at PSC up in Bothell. About 5 years ago, we installed some fixtures, and when they were first installed, we were finding closer to 70% in savings because we're able to have those additional controls on there. So we want to be able to help pay for that extra savings, and that incentive, that extra bonus incentive of $75 will help you with the programming, because there is a little bit of work to go into that. Doesn't take much. Most of them are either done on a handheld device, either through an iPhone or an Android phone, to do the programming there. But since there is some extra hours involved, we want to help pay for that. So what happens in this, when you apply and you qualify for this product, what will happen is we'll actually write you 2 different grants. One is your base incentive grant, which will give you the money that is paid for the KWH savings for that project. And the second grant that's written is what we're calling the performance grant, which is the bonus incentive. So that will mean that you will have one pre-inspection to be able for us to understand that the baseline is correct that you submitted, but then you'll have 2 post-inspections. The first post-inspection is to be ensured that fixtures were installed, and the second post-inspection typically will happen anywhere from 30, 45 days later after all the programming is finished. And when that programming is finished, then we'll come back in and we'll verify that the fixtures are working as they've been intended to do. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? So I just wanted to show you an example. This is our PSC office. If you've been in any of our workspaces or been even part of the webinars the past couple of years, you've seen this photo before. This is the after photo, having the LLC fixtures installed. That close-up zoom shot is showing you a daylight sensor and aux sensor where that red arrow is going to. And you can see the windows on the far right. That's where the daylight is coming into. And current code says there are 2 daylight zones in spaces like this. That first daylight zone, you take the top head height of where that window is, and you come in that full distance. So I believe this is a 10-foot ceiling here. So that first daylight zone, what they call the primary daylight zone, is 10 feet. The second daylight zone begins at 10 feet and goes an additional 10 feet. So that's 20 feet. So we would measure out 20 feet, anything within that daylight zone that has the daylight sensor and aux sensor installed, we will give the $75 per fixture. Okay, next slide. So the way these fixtures work, once they're programmed properly, you can see within that red lined area that there are some fixtures off. And there are no switches that are turning those off. It's the occupancy sensors that have turned them off. You may not be able to tell, but in the far end of the photograph, where the windows are, the fixtures along those lines are dimmed down, and the daylight sensors are taking care of those. So we're collecting savings from extra daylight coming in because someone's sitting right by the window, and within those daylight zones won't need as much light because of the daylight coming in from the window. So those dim down, we collect savings from that, and we'll pay you for that. And then the occupancy sensor, when they're not sensing people within this group area have left, they've gone off to a meeting, then those turn off. So we look for those fixtures to be into groups. And the other great thing is, in the old days, working in this space, if you were the first or second person in, typically someone comes in, there was 4 or 5 switches at the end of this little virtual hallway on the far left. They'd come in and they'd hit all the switches, and every single light would come on. And there's about 50 fixtures or so in this space. And it's 6:30 in the morning, maybe 7 o'clock, and all the fixtures are on. There's maybe only at that point half dozen people or so working in the space. By 8 o'clock, the space is almost filled up, with 30, 40 people working on this side. But for that full hour, you have all those fixtures on. Now think about during the day, people are going off and they're going to meetings, they're in groups. So there's people that are coming and going, there are people taking lunch, and still all the office lights are on. And at the end of the day, the cleaning crew comes in, it turns to be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Lights are left on because as you leave, you don't know who's still in the office. So you're leaving lights on, you're not going to turn them off behind you because you're not sure if anybody else is there. So those stay on. Then the cleaning crew comes in, and there are times that they don't remember to shut those off. They go into another space and they've forgotten and they stay on. But in the scenario with an LLC fixture is grouping of lights will turn off when it's not sensing the occupancy. And in a scenario where somebody's just working early in the morning or late at night, only fixtures are on in their area where they need to have light on. And if a cleaning crew forgets to turn off any lights, they will turn off within the designated time that is set. And that's usually about 20 minutes. We find that even 10 minutes is certainly acceptable without any movement, but 20 minutes is currently what the new code is going to be asking you to do. So that's really the function of an LLC fixture and how they work together. Can I have the next slide, please? So here's something that's going to be new for 2022. And it's our exterior NLC, which is network lighting control. It works very similarly to what our LLC will be for interior, but this will be for exterior. Again, we're going to be offering the $75 per fixture. Here are our requirements that are shown to you, and it'll be shown on the application what the requirements are. They must meet the following criteria, and as always with any project, they must be pre-approved by PSC to receive the bonus. So each exterior fixture must have the following: a photocell or astronomical time switch to turn off the lights during daylight hours, and that's pretty standard what we're asking for now. Just in a regular project, that's what you're doing. So I already have 1 out of 3 taken care of. The second thing is a dimming driver with a high-end trim set to maximum 90% power. So the dimming driver wouldn't be too difficult, I don't think, for you to get, because most manufacturers are including a dimming driver. It's not like the old days with fluorescents, where when you go to order a product, now this wouldn't be for exterior, but talking about interior, trying to do some dimming, then the manufacturer would charge you this large upgrade to go to a dimming ballast. Nowadays, dimming drivers are very common for interior and exterior. So we don't feel that bullet 2 will be too difficult. You will need, though, to make sure that the dimming driver is set to the maximum of 90%. And the reason we have that set at the 90% is, 1, we can collect the savings, which makes sense. We want to, and then 2, the human eye, when it's looking at light, if you change that light down just 10%, it's almost imperceptible for people to notice a difference between 90% to 100% when you dimming that middle amount. But we're finding that if we can collect that extra 10% of savings, that'll really help us in this game of trying to meet our goals. And the last item here, which is going to be important, is having the occupancy sensing control dim to at least 50% when there's no activity detected in that area for 10 minutes or more. So think of being on a school campus or a corporate campus. People have left during the day, even if there's people working inside of the offices at night, and they're heading home, they're going out to the bus stop or maybe light rail. Maybe they're have a light rail station working now. And if there's no activity around there, though, we can save quite a bit of savings on that energy by dimming them down 50%. And but they would pop up immediately if someone does come out of their office and is heading home. So we want to make sure that they are set to 50% when no activity is detected after 10 minutes, but then that they're controlled through that time-based control system. You can do one or the other. And groupings, Michael, we haven't really talked about groupings. Do you have an idea about the amount of groupings that you would allow for something like that?
Well, an occupancy sensor based one, it would have to be individual per fixture, because an occupancy sensor won't cover a large distance. So if you're doing occupancy sensor, you would have to do that. If you're doing a time-based system, you could group basically everything on one time-based control system, but each fixture would still have to have the dimming driver to be able to respond to the signal that is sent out by that single time-based system.
So when you're designing a system like this, I think, though, folks, you'd want to be conscious of the area that it's covering. So the pathway that people are going down to. So if they're taking a path to get from their office space to maybe a parking lot, think of what is going to be coming on at full brightness or not to feel safe and secure. So I'll be left to you on that. So that's something brand new that's going to be happening. And I think we're the only utility that is offering this in the Northwest. We'll see who may copy us coming up, because when we offered LLC bonuses several years ago. We found many of the utilities doing the same. So maybe it'll take off and become very popular and something else. So $75 each and every fixture, plus you're getting that additional savings on the KWH as well. Okay, next slide. We do have a next slide. Yes. Okay, so if you go to pse.com/business lighting, here's a screenshot, just a partial screenshot to show you where to grab the application. So you don't have to go to pse.com and then go searching where our website is. Just put in the /business lighting and this will pop up. That blue button that says application will bring up the standard application. Michael will have the simple application available as well. It sounds like it'll be a little bit later, but I think within the next 2 weeks, and Michael's going to go over both applications soon. We'll let you know when those get posted, but we are set, I believe, for December 15th to have 2022 application sitting underneath that blue button. We also have a quick reference guide. So if you want to print something out to understand the program a little bit better, hit those blue letters, quick reference guide, and it'll come up with this next slide. This is a quick reference guide. It's a 2-pager. It is a PDF, so you can print it out, and it gives all of our requirements and how to apply and all the information we talked about this morning, kind of in just an 8.5 by 11 2-sided sheet. So you can print it off, leave it at your desk. You could also send it to customers if you need to, things like that. Now, this one that I have a screenshot of does say 2021 business lighting program. We will be updating it to the 2022, and we will have that by the end of this year. But the link will still be the same link. Next slide. Since COVID, we do have a photo video verification option. We do require on most projects that you have a pre-inspection. It must be pre-approved. All grants, all projects must be pre-approved before you can start any work. So we are offering now a photo video verification. There are certain parameters to what that would be, but we are offering that since COVID has begun, if you're uncomfortable having someone come up on the site. Next slide. So I'm going to pass it on to Michael now, and we're going to have a live look at the standard application with him and how it'll look for 2022.
Yeah, before I get to the application, there's some questions that we will answer live here. So one of them was why 70% funding when Lighting to Go is at 80%. Well, technically, Lighting to Go is a deemed program. So in-house, we figure out from a cost effectiveness standpoint what the incentive is going to be. Where with business lighting, there needs to be some skin in the game for the customer. So we will fund up to 70% of the installed cost. Internally, when the Lighting to Go deemed measures are calculated, it is based on the actual material costs. So that's the basic difference between those internally. There was another question confirming the exterior NLC bonus is also incentivized at the 35 cents per kWh on top of the bonus. And yes, that is correct. Another question, did you say that the $75 bonus only applies to the fixtures within 20 feet of the window, even if other fixtures outside that range are part of the network? So it's a little bit complicated, let's say. As in the example that Andrew showed, an open office space. yes, the fixtures that are outside the daylight zone, because they are part of the same space, because they are on the same control system, we will provide the $75 bonus. If they're in a different space outside the daylight zone and there are no other LLC fixtures in that space, the answer is no. Daylight is one of the components that we are paying for and want that control savings when we're providing the bonus for LLC. So there's a little bit of where we'll look at the space and say, yes, those still qualify, even though they're outside of the daylight zone. And there's a new little button on the application that I will try to remember to show that helps with that. Another question, what exactly is the difference between LLC interior fixtures and NLC exterior? So NLC network lighting controls is kind of the overarching designation for an advanced controllable light fixture. LLC is kind of a subset of that. LLC is that there is an occupancy sensor, a daylight sensor, the network capability to group and control fixtures simultaneously. And it really has been meant for interior fixtures. So that's why we're not using the designation LLC for exterior light fixtures. NLC in its kind of overarching definition, it is a control system that is controlling light fixtures, luminaires that have capabilities like dimming or occupancy sensing or high-end trim. But there could be a single controller that sends the signal, like let's say a conference room. You could have a single occupancy sensor, a single daylight sensor that are controlling, let's say, 9 fixtures. If you were doing it that way and they had the advanced capabilities, that would be an NLC scenario. If you put an occupancy sensor, a daylight sensor on every light fixture, and then those are networked together, those are luminaire level. So hopefully that answers the question. Last question, at least that's in the chat right now. I have 3 aux sensors, one at both ends and one in the middle to zone a warehouse aisle with 5 fixtures. All 5 come on when one of the 3 pick up motion. How would you reflect that on the workbook? So right now with interior, that is not luminaire level lighting control. It would be shown on the workbook as an occupancy sensor controlling 5 light fixtures. And you can put a 3, a quantity of 3 in there. It doesn't affect the savings. It would affect the cost. So if you have 3 aux sensors, let's say they cost $50 a piece, you could put in the cost $50, and then it would build into the cost, total cost of the job that way. But unless you do individual occupancy sensor, daylight sensors, and again, in a warehouse, that would be need to be in a daylight warehouse, it can't be considered a luminaire level. So occupancy sensor on the control. All right, with that, now let me move my stuff around on my screen quickly here so that I'm actually looking at the camera as we do this. Oh, I can't move that. Okay, fine. We'll just put it on top. The Excel open, and we want to have the correct one. And okay, let's see if I can shoot. Share. Yes. And share. Okay, So this is the 2022 business lighting application that Andrew's been talking about as we've been going through here. Couple of things that, just to reiterate what Andrew was talking about, the terms and condition page, probably the least used page on the application, except for maybe the customer use page on here. It will tell you one thing right here in the middle. It's saying this is a retrofit lighting project. PSE pre-approval is required before the retrofit is started. I'll show you how that changes here in a minute as we move to tenant improvement and new construction projects. If you scroll down, you will find information on what a lighting retrofit project is classified as, and the verification that we need for pre-inspection. And then a lighting only tenant improvement project and new construction, as Andrew mentioned, energy code is the baseline. Pre-inspection on a tenant improvement project or new construction project is not required, but we will need to have drawings. They don't have to be architectural blueprints, but we will need drawings that show the square footage of each space. Because again, this is based on the lighting power allowance of the Washington State Energy Code to create the baseline. Scrolling down or clicking on one of the buttons here, I can go and find some more information on, I'm trying to find, here's the LLC bonus, and here is the exterior network lighting control bonus. Yes, $75 on both of them. Yes, the 35 cents. And here's that information that Andrew mentioned, exterior NLC fixtures, and it has to have the photocell or astronomical time switch to turn the lights off during daylight hours, has to have the dimming driver, and has to have either occupancy sensing control on each fixture or has to have the, which dims to at least 50%. You could set that up to dim to 40% or whatever the customer is comfortable with, but at a minimum, it has to be dimmed down to 50%, or it can be controlled through a time-based control system to dim to at least 50% of the power for at least 6 hours per night. So you think, 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. That's going to give you the 6 hours. So those are the changes on the terms and conditions page. So I move over to the project owner page. Pretty much the same. For those of you who are familiar with the application, just a couple of things going on here that are different. First of all, the project type. This is where you would specify whether this is a retrofit, whether it's a tenant improvement, or whether it's new construction. So it's a drop down. Right now it's set on retrofit. If I change it to tenant improvement, you'll notice at the top, this is a tenant improvement project drawing showing each space, and the square footage of each space is required at submission. You'll also notice kind of hidden behind here, I'll move off that. It's now telling you what the allowed Washington State Energy Code lighting power density for your building is. If I change this to new construction, you'll notice that now there is another box at the bottom. So if you're doing a true new construction, which means it's a new building or in addition to an existing building. If it's done inside an existing building, we will consider that a tenant improvement. Again, addition to an existing building, a new, quote unquote, new building, it is new construction. Under the Washington State Energy Code, there is a section C406.3 that is a requirement. So you either have selected none the 3.1, which says you're going to reduce your lighting power baseline by 10%, or changing it to 3.2, which is you're reducing it by 20% better than code. A couple other things. I'm going to move this back to retrofit. I'll come back to this page probably a couple of times as we're moving through here. Down at the bottom where it used to be the contractor information here, we've changed it to the submitting company information. Because we have some distributors and other vendors or ESCOs that often would submit a project, and it's different than the installing contractor. So when you first open this up, it will look like this, and this will look like this, and everything is blank. And you'll notice directly underneath these boxes, these are not fillable, but what will happen if you are the owner submitting, the customer submitting, it will pull the customer information from the top of this page. If you are a submitting contractor, you will then fill in this information here, and it will put the information down below that we will then pull for the project submittal. You can, again, this can be a submitting contractor if you're not the installing contractor. It could be an ESCO, it could be a vendor. Again, it could be the installing contractor. And the reason that it is different, so over here is who is it installed by? Is it the customer? Again, these will be blank, and it will show the customer information above. If you are the submitting contractor, which you've chosen over here, you don't need to fill these in, and it will automatically pull this information over here. Or if you are an installing contractor, you then have the ability to put the information here, and it will pull your information down below. A lot said there, but you know, it just helps us out in the end as we put it into our system of who's submitting the project, who's the owner, and who's actually installing the project. In reality, I think we have probably about the same or potentially less fields that will need to be filled in. Jumping to the fixtures where you create your fixtures, very little has changed here. The only change, two changes. Number one, it totals everything here up above. So it will total the 40, the 14, the 1, and 10 here to tell you that you have 66 that you are have as new fixtures. The other two minor changes are if I click on create an existing fixture, if I'm doing a TLED, and here's where, you know, if, as Andrew mentioned, we now have that incentive if you've got a TLED to TLED. So you've got an existing TLED. So in the drop down, there's this existing TLED. You then, of course, would do TLED plug and play and the number of lamps. Instead of entering the watts in this cell here, you enter the lamp watts in this box. So they're a 15-watt lamp. You notice this is more than 4 times 15. Why is that true? Well, you're using the existing ballast because these are plug and play, and we're automatically doing the calculation to pull the watts for the ballast. If this was a ballast bypass, and if it would update, why did it not update? It could be me, it could be the program. I will confirm that that should say 60 at this point in time. Again, this is a work in progress. There's a lot going on here. So I'll confirm that that calculates correctly. And that same thing happens if I were to look at a new fixture. There'll be a box here of what the TLED watts are. And it will then calculate into this box the same calculation that we saw on the last one. If it is a fixture, you would put it in the system watts. So if there's a gray box, you don't fill it in. And you're looking for this to say yes. So if I delete this, see, it went to 0 and tells me no. So again, if I put in my 10 watts, it will then calculate to 22 because it's a plug and play. Those are the minor changes that are on the fixture tab. So I can then jump back to my fixture list to get to the navigation. And here I will now go to the installations where there's a number of changes. First of all, it looks a little bit different if you're very familiar with the application. The information, let's bump this up a little bit. And when I need to scroll, I'll try to do my best. It'll tell you right here what whether it's a retrofit, new construction, tenant improvement. It also, so if you're in a view like this where you can't really see as you scroll, it'll tell you what the total incentive is and what the kWh saved is up here in the left-hand corner. So these boxes have changed a little bit because we needed to add a couple of cells for the tenant improvement and new construction. This is the same, name of the area. This is the same drop down of our heat types. This is the same drop down of space types that you are very familiar with. This is a new cell. Is the space daylighted? So it can be not daylighted, and it comes up with an error because I have selected a control that requires daylight. So this is that question of, can I use a luminaire level outside a daylight zone? If these are, again, in a space where there are other LLC fixtures that are in the daylight zone, like that open office space, you can still say interior LLC, and you can then go outside of the daylight zone. And what happens here, if I just, why it's important that you choose it this way and actually split it up, is if I were to say this was in the primary sidelit area, things are not quite updating. What it's going to do is go look at the savings for a daylit space. I'm trying to figure out why. Oh, there's so many little error things that I've tried to pick up, and I will keep working on it. And then if it's outside the daylight zone, this number should reduce. Something else for me to look at to try to get complete working order on this. In the center, you'll notice that we've now put these, the quantity and the fixture, because when I start to scroll, I'm down here, what am I supposed to put in these boxes? It just gives you a little bit more information of what I'm putting in the boxes. Quantity, as before, this is a drop down, as you're familiar with, of the fixtures that we created on the fixture list. This is a drop down of the fixtures we created on the new fixtures, cost. And then here are the controls, again, just like before. If I scroll over, one of the added things that doesn't change anything when it's a retrofit, of course, here's where if you want to include the measure, or a customer who wants to see everything on the project, but you don't want to include it, you can click here and say no, and it will then not include this in the calculation. You can see those numbers now went to 0. But you can also see right next to it that yes, this is paying at 35 cents per kWh. It's showing you what the installed lighting power density is of those 30 fixtures if you had a square footage in here. If you don't have square footage, and I'll show you where the square footage shows up, and you don't need that in a retrofit situation. And it shows you what the allowed lighting power allowance. So you can say, whoa, if I put in the square footage, this space is really overlit. maybe I should reduce the number of light fixtures in that space. Here's an example if I scroll down of the exterior NLC, and this one is showing me an error because of course I put in more than the quantity. So if I put in, go back to 10, it will show me kind of in this yellow color that I've chosen the exterior NLC occupancy based. And the reason we highlight this is because internally we need to remember that and see that and make sure that the equipment that you are choosing actually meets the requirement of either interior LLC or exterior NLC. These are highlighted yellow because you have chosen a fixture that is more or less than, I should say less than 20% of, or 25%. I'll have to look what the calculation is looking at. You've reduced the wattage by more than 75%, which we just want to make sure that the customer is aware that the reduction is that large, because you could be reducing the light levels in the space. Something to definitely think about. Now, one of the things that I want to show here, and I'm going to quickly just click to the project. I'm going to change this to a tenant improvement because things will change on the installations tab. First thing is if you built it as a retrofit and you then changed it to a tenant improvement, you would notice this, that everything is wrong. Well, these classifications of space types that we have used in the past are not changing, but the code number or the code classifications are different. So, it says revise space type, project type change. So I'll click on this, and these are the code, Washington State Energy Code space types. So, okay, this was a classroom. Okay, I'll click on classroom. Okay, I still have interior KWH doesn't save 5% over code. You have to save at least 5% over code. So if I again scroll across here, I can see that I've installed 1.64 watts per square foot, and I'm only allowed 1 watt per square foot. Okay, how am I going to make that work? I could put in, let's say, 15 light fixtures. And now my installed lighting power density, because this space is 640 square feet, and here's where that square footage gets put in. And you'll notice before it was grayed out, you don't need it if it's not part of if it's not a retrofit, you don't need the square footage. Revised control quantity. Okay, yes, I changed that. So I need to go back to 15. Then it works, and it now tells me it's complete. You will notice one other thing, that you are not required to put in an existing fixture because there is no existing fixture or existing quantity. It's doing a reverse calculation to come up with what would be the watts per fixture and the KWH for that space. It'll also tell you code minimum is an occupancy sensor. So if I was not using an interior LLC and I tried to say switch breaker, it's like, oh, wait a minute, no. Because we're using the code for tenant improvement, and the same thing would be true for new construction, you do have to meet the code minimum for a classroom, which is an occupancy sensor. So at a minimum, I have to put in an occupancy sensor. So now it works again because I have code minimum, I've got my square footage. Again, in this case, one other kind of interesting one is if I were to put this as side lit, now the code minimum is daylight plus occupancy sensor, because Washington State Energy Code in a classroom where I've got those light fixtures in a primary side lit area have to have a daylight sensor. Okay, maybe that's a space that is not daylit. Okay, fine. Then it will go back to code minimum as an occupancy sensor. Yes, this is kind of, there's a lot going on here, but we know that there are a fair number of projects that could be either new construction or tenant improvement that aren't doing our program, because new construction program is kind of it's everything. Where here we're trying to separate it out for those people who want to do this or need to do this. We're happy to work with you on how to make this work. If you follow the prompts of, this one, again, revise space type. Okay, I know that this one I need to change again to a classroom. Okay, I'm changing to a classroom. Okay, it all works again. Follow the error checking prompts that are over here on the left. At this point, you can leave all these others incorrect. If you want to kind of sort of hide them, you can hit the delete button here and everything will gray out. You will notice that the include measure selection is gone. If this is using code, you couldn't say, well, oh, I'm going to exclude this space. Every space that you're working on has to be included from a code standpoint. That's a lot that I've kind of dumped on folks. Customer authorization is what we used to call the signature page. One note for everybody who's doing a project. Very, very important. This information needs to be filled out before you send it to the customer for signature. It's very hard for us to read stuff that's been handwritten in. We need it in the application, the Excel, when you submit the Excel. So please put the information in here of who the payee is before you send it to the customer. If there's an LLC, it will show up with some information. So let's just change this back to interior LLC. What did I do wrong? Oh, the daylight control selected. See, this is where I'm trying to catch everybody. And now on the customer authorization, here is the information for the LLC grant. It will show up here also for the exterior NLC. Customer use page is blank. So if you or the customer needs to do some calculations or put some notes there, that's where you can do it. Another page that we use internally is this ready tab. So what it's doing is going out and looking at all of the cells and going, have you done everything? So I can see, oh, I have not put in the payee information. I have not done the LLC performance grant information. I've got an error on lighting installation 6. These I'm going to actually change to yellow because these cells, if this is in the customer information, and if it's the same as the project information, it's okay. But in any one of these situations, if you just click on, oops, the reference is invalid. How about over here? It will take me directly to that page so you can fix those errors. And it actually took me to the cell, but you can see right here, contract address, if location is different than project location. So if it's not filled in, it uses the information over here. That's why I'll change those to a yellow. Wow, that was a lot. How are we doing on questions and answers? Do we have any that we need to ask?
We do have a few
live?
questions.
Yeah.
Let's go to one. Go to your terms page. The question is on LLC, do they still need to be on the QPL on DLC? The answer would be no, they don't need to be QPL, but if you could scroll down, Michael, to what our requirements are for any fixtures. It wouldn't matter if it's an LLC product and not any product that you submit to us with the manufacturer's cut sheet. There's the requirements. Want to go over those, Michael, or shall I?
Sure. So it needs to be UL or ETL or equal listed. Power factor needs to be 90% or greater. And we know that one's actually a hard one to always find on manufacturer's specification sheets, cut sheets. So that one we're somewhat lenient on because we know not all manufacturers do that. But we need to see on the spec sheet that it is UL or ETL listed, that the manufacturer's warranty is 5 years or greater. We need to see what the total input watts are. So with LEDs, what's the driver and what is the, the LED modules put together. The recommended CRI ratings. We don't require, but we would like to see CRIs in these ranges. Oh, and a couple of things. Number one, power factor. I don't know the last time I saw an LED fixture that didn't have 90% power factor when we were actually able to get the information. And the same thing is pretty close to true on recommended CRI ratings. Sometimes you can find some exterior stuff that's low, but we're accepting 65 or greater on that. And of course, we reserve the right, if we really don't know anything about the manufacturer, to require an LM79 or LM80 on that. As Andrew said there, and as I reiterated, no, we do not require DLC on anything. If you happen to have the DLC listing, we will accept that in lieu of these specifications, but we do want to have a copy of the manufacturer's specification sheet so that we know what it looks like. We don't just want the DLC screenshot that shows that it qualifies. We still need the cut sheet or the specification sheets for that. I see something in. I want to answer a question that I see in the Q&A that is an important one, and we still do TRC, but two things. First of all, on retrofit projects, we are now including a non-energy impact. Some people call them non-energy benefits. So we are taking into account some of the savings that would be there from going from a HID or fluorescent fixture to an LED fixture, which helps on the TRC. So more product will qualify. Additionally, if I jump to, let me go back here to the installations tab, you'll notice that it doesn't show here next to it. If this was a retrofit, it would show you what the TRC is. I think it'd be right here. Because this is a tenant improvement, and the same thing is true on new construction, we don't calculate a TRC. We use what the savings are multiplied by the savings per kWh, the 35 cents or 25 cents, or what the average is. So this is one way. The incentive will typically be lower because the baseline is code instead of what's physically installed. But for those projects that are not cost effective is a good way to say it. We still could provide some funding if you treated it as a tenant improvement. And even if the equipment still exists, we could call it a tenant improvement project.
Okay, we have another question. I just want to point out, since you have your screen up there, that if you've been participating in the program for a long time, that Mikey's Chili Cafe now has a new location in Redmond, and it's now called a cafe. So for years, there's always been Mikey's Chili, but it was
No,
questioned last year.
it was Mikey's
How come he keeps
barbecue. This is
applying year after
this is
year?
Mikey's Chili.
Oh, that's
It
right.
used to be Mikey's
Oh, Mikey's
barbecue.
barbecue.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mikey's we're
branching.
investigating Mikey to see why he's applying on a regular basis.
Branching out. He's branching out.
But the next question is, how will the LLC control parameters be verified? I'm assuming that question is in regards to the second post-inspection. That would be handled by the either engineer or project manager, the PSC employee who has been assigned the project. They would verify that, go on the site. What I do personally is I look at the phone and their controls. Yes, they could change them once they leave, but there's going to be a certain amount of trust issue in there too as well, right? I mean, you can see where the fixtures are located. You can see the light levels that they're at, and then they pull up the program on their phone and they show you what those set levels are, or they show you the handheld device that they have, be it a remote or something, that it shows the programming. So it's held by, so I believe answering that would be then by, it's going to be by the PSC staff person coming for that post inspection in order to verify what those controls are. But Michael, why don't you go to what we're looking for on those? Do you still have that on the tab on 2022 that you did last year?
Yes.
Where it showed what the parameters would be?
This is this tab here that's titled
there it is, at the bottom.
LLC and exterior NLC. It will give you the same information you saw on the terms page. And then, again, I probably need to do a little bit of work on this. You know, occupancy sensor that we recommend for LLC 10 minutes. Yes, you have the daylight sensor. We recommend 75% on task tuning. I put a little bit of note here. Exterior NLC fixtures shall be set to a maximum of 90% full light output. I need to put some information here on the occupancy sensor time delay situation here. Yeah, so this, yeah, sorry. Go ahead on if there are any other questions or.
We do have a couple more questions, and then we can do a wrap up because we have about 10 minutes left.
Sure.
So the next question is on tenant improvements. I'll let you answer this. I think I know what the answer is, but since it's new, I'll let you answer it and see if I get the answer right. And I'll let you know. Maybe I'll get. So the question is, on tenant improvement, if the fixtures are staying in the same position, are drawings required?
The reason
I know the answer is.
The reason that drawings are required is we need the square footage. I don't need to know where the fixtures are installed. If I'm doing a tenant improvement, I need to know the square footage of those spaces. Again, those don't have to be architectural blueprints. That is going to be, some type of drawing that says, oh, this open office is 5,270 square feet. And when we go out there, that it feels like it's 5,270 square feet situation. But where the fixtures are located doesn't matter from a tenant improvement standpoint. Is that the way you think you'd answer, or do you think there's a completely different answer to the question?
No, that was exactly. Plus, I would want those drawings as well, part of my verification, right, that I can submit part of getting final approval through upper management to approve the grant. I might review the grant. I might review all the documentation, then I submit it, just so people know how process goes. Being on the business lighting team, I review all the documentation. You're the first, I'm your first point of contact for folks. But it goes out of my hands and it goes off to someone else to review that to make sure I've submitted everything properly and have all my documentation, all my ducks in a row. And then it goes to management where they're actually approving the grant, and then that grant goes out. So there's a couple other steps, even though I might be assigned your project. So as a reviewer and someone who is approving someone to say, yeah, I think they should get a grant, I would want those drawings as well for what Michael said and also for part of my documentation. So let's go with one more question.
Okay.
That's in here, and then we'll go to our last slide, our couple last slides, and we can wrap it up. So the last question we'll take today, and if there are others, by the way, that you still have questions, the next slide we'll show in just a minute will give you ways to contact us, and either directly to me or Michael or other folks if you have more questions, or if we didn't get to you today, reach out to us and we'll go through everything as well. So the last question is, with a lot of fixtures that are wattage adjustable, how do we handle this if the wattage is turned down to us for a certain space? I have an answer for that as well. Want me to answer it, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong?
Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
I'll take the embarrassment.
Yeah, there you go.
The live embarrassment. Okay. So I think what the question is looking at is some downlights, retrofit downlights in particular, have a little switch on the back of it to be able to choose color temperature, but you can also choose wattage. So you can buy one product off the shelf that might be 10 watts, 12 watts, or 16 watts. For us, we would need to accept the 16 watts because we don't know if later on, once you leave, because those are easily pulled down from the ceiling, that you would go and change those later or something is changing. Plus, it's the bigger thing is it's about the energy savings. We are paying these incentives based upon energy savings. And if you can install a fixture that's a retrofit kit that can be 16 watts, but you're saying, no, you're only going to use it at 10 watts, we really need to take it at the 16 watt level because it would certainly change what our savings would be and what we're trying to reach for our goals. Is that reasonable, Michael?
Yeah, the only caveat to that would be is if it is in a, let's say, I've seen these in exterior fixtures, also parking lot fixture, 24 feet up in the air. Somebody's gonna have to get a lift out there to change it. If there is a situation where it is obvious, but it's gonna be really difficult to change, and we can get verification that that is what's been selected, then it's kind of up to the EME, the PM, to make that call. We'll work with you, but yeah, as Andrew said, it's all about the energy savings, and we need to be accurate. Yeah. So a couple of quick things.
I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, a couple of quick things on the contact page that are not part of the contact page. First of all, you've noticed as I've gone through here, there are still some things that I need to fix. And I'm doing my best to get these done as quickly as possible so we can get this posted. However, I will accept a project that is on the 2021 application through the end of January. So if you've already got a project, and I don't get this out for another 2 weeks because I want this to be as close as possible to be right. I don't want a bunch of problems that we have to fix later. We'll accept the 2021 application. The incentives are the same. Now, if you have a project where you want to do TLED to TLED, let me know. We'll send you one of the applications. We'll confirm that it's calculating correctly and that everything is correct, and you can use it. If it is a situation we have a low TRC and it's a retrofit project, and because we now have the non-energy impact in there that it will pay better, let me know. Let's make sure that it's working correctly on the application. If you've got a tenant improvement or a new construction, again, let me know. Let's work together on those to also do a little bit of testing to make sure that this is right. But I will keep diligently working on it to try to get this done as soon as possible. The other one thing I want to throw out here is we know there's, we need a lot of savings coming into 2022. We're trying to do some different things here. We're hoping that this drives a lot of projects to us. And because of that, business lighting is hiring. We have an open position in business lighting. So if you know of someone or if you are interested in potentially working with us, actually on our side of the table, send me an email at michael.lane@psc.com, and I can direct you to where that job posting is at. So with, what you see here again is if you want more information on the business lighting program, the commercial new construction program, the websites are there where you want to download the application, and the quick reference guide is also there. And send Andrew any comments, questions. Don't send them to me. No, go ahead and send them to me also. You can send your comments, your questions, and we will answer those to the best of our ability. I want to thank everybody, and I know we have another slide that says thank you, so go ahead and switch to the last one.
Yep. Alana, thanks.
Hi, everyone. Again, thank you for participating today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to submit questions, educate yourself, and be prepared for next year. So thank you, Michael and Andrew. Excellent job today. We want to let everybody know this reminder that this event is being recorded. We were going to be working on sending a thank you email out to all that have registered and attended today's event. So please look for that. And when this event concludes in a moment, we will send a after event survey. There's 5 to 7 questions. If you could please fill that out, it really helps us improve our future events and also helps us better understand if there's other topics or information you would like to learn about. And of course, if you'd like a one-on-one with Michael or Andrew. Thank you again. Again, great job, Michael and Andrew. Appreciate you always. And have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Bye all.
Bye.